Hi everyone, welcome back to Vegans, Veggies, and Vibes. My name is Karis.
And I'm Amarais.
And today we're making artichoke pasta with some roast veggies. And we also have a delicious little sage drink for the side. Do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're going to get our vegetables ready and preheat our oven. We're gonna cook everything at 400 degrees. So I'm going to set my oven real fast. So it's preheating while we cook our vegetables. And we have some purple potatoes, some regular, just like russet white potatoes, and we have some large carrots that we're gonna be roasting. We have a baking sheet that we're gonna be roasting them on. I usually like to line my baking sheet with foil because things don't stick as badly, but I am out of foil, so we're not going to do that today. But that is a recommendation that I do have if you have foil. So the first thing we're gonna do is wash all of our vegetables. If I hand you vegetables, you wanna wash?
I would love to.
We're gonna do, let's say, 2 of these potatoes. Let's do 3 carrots. And I like the carrots that are like extra thick for roasting because you can chop them up into quarters easier.
Try it. Wash purple potatoes.
And these purple potatoes, they're nice and small, so it's really easy to cut them into smaller pieces.
Do you want to peel the carrots?
I don't normally peel carrots. That's a personal preference. So for root vegetables, all of your nutrients are in their skins, which is why like some people will leave their skins on for their mashed potatoes as well. It's also just kind of a texture thing for some people. So you can peel your carrots if you want. I will not be, for the purpose of fiber. And I'm cutting them into kind of smaller pieces like this. I'd say they're probably a 1/4 inch thick and maybe an inch or 2 long depending. And you want your vegetables to all be around the same size, but if they're not perfect, it's definitely not a problem. And then for seasoning vegetables, it's really easy to season just like a group of mixed vegetables like this. It's really forgiving. One thing that I always recommend for people who aren't very comfortable just grabbing spices is to look at like recipes that you do enjoy and kind of just different, not genres, but genres of food. So like if I wanted to make something with like an Indian dish flair, I might use turmeric or curry powder, coriander, which is the same thing as cilantro, things that you would traditionally find in Indian like dishes. Or like if I wanted a Spanish themed dish, I might add cumin and curry powder, maybe lime juice. So just looking at the types of foods you like or the region of food that you like and kind of what they generally spice with. And then it's really easy to group spices together. If I wanted this to be more of an Italian theme, I could do all of the herbs that they use in Italian cooking, like oregano, parsley, stuff like that. And so for the carrots, I'm kind of quartering them into like little strips. And I like them like that. But you can also cut them into like circled chunks if you want. Some people find that easier. And to cut them, I'm just kind of making a nice slice and then pushing down on the knife to get all the way through because carrots have kind of a nice crunch to them. So sometimes they're harder to slice. But if you have a nice sharp knife, it's not too bad. And Karis, I know we had a request from someone who eats your cooking regularly to know how you generally spice all of your food at vegan dinners during the year.
Typically what I do is I'll go to the store and I'll get like some of the fresh herb leaves. So I'll do like oregano, thyme, maybe some rosemary, depending on how I'm feeling. And depending on the time of year. So like with the fresh ones, I pick off the leaves and I scatter them around, my chopped veggies on the pan with a little bit of olive oil. And then I'll do salt and pepper. I might throw in some allspice, if I'm looking for something with a little like warmth to it. Toss it up with my hands, make sure it's evenly spread on the pan like we'll be showing over there. And then just roast it for a while. Easy recipe.
Another fun thing you can do if you want a really sweet side is you can take honey, which is not necessarily vegan. That can be controversial, but I know a lot of vegans who choose to eat honey. You can take honey and mix it with a fat like coconut oil and melt them together and then coat your vegetables in that. Sometimes we'll even add like nutmeg or cinnamon to make it kind of like a sweeter side. If you're not vegan, it's really common to do that with butter, especially with carrots. It's a very common thing to do with carrots. And I really enjoy that, especially like if you're having a dish that kind of is missing that sweet flavor in it. Not necessarily like a sugar sweet, but like, corn is sweet. Stuff like that. So we're almost done cutting up all our vegetables. And we don't want to overcrowd our pan because we want everything to brown nicely. So we'll show you that in a minute. And then, Karis, do you want to talk about oils we can use?
Typically you're going to want like neutral oils that don't have a lot of flavor. Like we're using vegetable oil today, right? Mm-hmm. But like oftentimes like I'll use olive oil. You want to make sure that like you're not putting too much on the pan because that can make your veggies like kind of wet and obviously very oily. They won't bake right, but you also want like a fair amount on there just to make sure everything is spread evenly. And like, what is the purpose of oil whenever you're roasting? I've always just done it, but like.
Yeah, so it helps things to not stick, but it also helps things crisp on the outside. It's kind of like you're frying it. Okay. Almost in a way. Yeah, but it's like add crispness to brown because if you don't cover it, they dry up. Like we can even leave a couple potatoes unoiled if we want to show you, but they get really dry, so it also helps vegetables keep their moisture. You eating a raw potato? No.
I was hoping you were gonna out me.
Did I even talk about the purple potatoes? So purple potatoes have kind of a more earthy flavor. Earthy as in, like you could almost call it more of a dirt flavor, but like in a nice way. And then like golden potatoes have like a buttery flavor. Red potatoes have a lot less flavor just in general. This guy's kind of long. But I chose purple because mostly for the color, and I think it's a potato most people don't know about, but it's really nice in a medley, which is why we're including it with other things. Also, fun fact, if you boil it, your water turns a really beautiful blue. So yeah, so I'll show you our pan. It's not overcrowded. Everything has room to breathe. So now we're just gonna add some oil and we're gonna season it. Karis, how do you feel like seasoning today? One thing I included on the recipe that you don't have to use, I just included it, is smoked paprika. Mm-hmm. That is a really amazing spice that goes really great with any vegetable that you're cooking, especially baking. It's smoked, so it has kind of a nice smoky flavor to it. But it kind of almost gives things like I don't want to say barbecue-y, but kind of that like smoked flavor that barbecue has. And a nice like roundness to it.
So something that I like to do whenever I am like roasting vegetables or cooking anything, if I'm not sure what seasoning I want to do, I like look at my potentials. So I looked at the oregano at the time. Amarais has a nice Italian seasoning blend in her seasoning drawer. So you open it up and you give it just like a little whiff. Because like the way that the seasoning smells is a pretty good indicator of like what it's going to taste like in the dish. So if you smell that, you're like, is this what I want my dish to taste like? Yes or no. And that's kind of how I decide when I have like how I want to season things. So, ooh.
So that's smoked paprika.
Yeah, it is. I definitely want that.
Yeah.
Do you want to do garlic powder in it too?
Oh, I love garlic and everything, honestly.
So how are you feeling about these three?
Works for me.
Okay, is that an Italian flag?
The nice thing about spices too is most of them I feel like go together pretty well as long as you're not throwing like a million together. But there's also different kinds of spices. Oh, we're preheated. That's nice. Like there's spices they call warm spices. And that's things like cinnamon's a warm spice. Spices that go in like sweeter things are kind of considered warm spices. There's other types like herbs, dried herbs. A lot of the Italian spices are dried herbs. Those are things that look like little bits of leaves, of course. Stuff like that. But yeah, so we're just kind of eyeballing it. A nice coat of everything. Do you want some salt on there?
Oh, absolutely. So I'd say it's about like at least like 2 tablespoons per seasoning.
Probably, yeah.
And you kind of just like, I take it, just sprinkle it, like I'm making a little blanket across the top. And we're going to eventually be taking our fingers and kind of like rubbing the vegetables in the oil, tossing it, make sure it's evenly spread. Adding salt and pepper. Also just like a nice little even coating of it.
One thing to watch out for if you're using spice blends, which can be absolutely amazing, is to look and see if they have salt in them, because a lot of them will have salt, and so you won't want to add extra salt or you'll get like a way overly salted dish.
I'm gonna go ahead and get in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just gonna take them, and like whenever you toss them, make sure that all of your spices are on there evenly. It evenly covers the veggies and the oil. And the oil also helps like even coverage of the spices with the vegetables. Kind of just rub them around. Toss them in the oil.
And while she does that, I'm gonna get some water in our pot to start boiling for our pasta. One trick with pasta is to always salt your water. There's actually an Italian word, and your water's supposed to be like that. And I can't remember what the Italian word is, but it means like salty, like seawater.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an old Italian trick. And if you're cooking fresh pasta, they actually put olive oil in their water too, and that helps your fresh pasta not stick.
All right, I'm gonna call this a day on the tossing. Make sure after you toss to reset your veggies. Make sure they still got plenty of space and they're not totally just on top of each other. These hands. You're gonna wanna wash your hands again.
I'm salting the water right now. And we're gonna throw our root vegetables into the oven, and we're gonna set a timer for 20 minutes, and we'll check it then. And we'll also give them a nice turn so that they are browning on all sides. So while we're doing that, we're going to, let's make our sauce first. Because we need to roast our, what is it called? Mushrooms, but also make our sauce. One thing about cooking is you kind of have to figure out in what order you want to do things, because oftentimes during cooking, you'll be multitasking. So while those bake, it kind of doesn't matter what we do in what order, which is why I'm sitting here thinking about it. But we're gonna make our sauce first. So this is the artichoke sauce, the part we're all excited about.
I'm gonna open this up.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is a variation of a recipe from feastingathome.com. I have some fun stuff on there. I've been looking at them. So we're gonna add a can of drained artichoke hearts. Artichoke hearts are great. If you've never had an artichoke, this is a great time to try it out. And we're gonna add a 1/4 cup of oil to that. Is this a 1/4 cup? This is a 1/2 cup, but it has a line for 1/4 cup, which is nice. Gives it dual purpose. 2 cloves of garlic. Salt and pepper to taste. What else goes in there?
And then we have olive oil, salt, and pepper. That's it.
Okay, yeah.
You could put in extra garlic or anything if you wanted to.
I do like things very garlicky. That's another thing. If you know you like something, you can always play around with dishes. Ooh, an easy way to get the skin off your garlic, you put it on your cutting board and take the heel of your hand and just smash it a little bit. And that loosens all the skin off. Another easy way is you can just cut off the butt too, like where it connects to the root system. And you can do that with your knife as well. Oh, there's 2. And once you get all of this off, I normally like to roast them, but this recipe, wow, there's a lot in that chunk. This recipe says just to add them in uncooked. Hi, Nikito. My snazzer came to visit us while we cook. He loves to sit at our feet while we cook. He's hoping that we'll make a mess and drop something. Oh, another thing, careful not to let your garlic grow. That is something I am horrible at. You're supposed to store garlic in, let me remember, dark places. I think it's cool dark places is generally where they're supposed to be stored. Am I right? Am I remembering correctly? I'm growing some garlic right now, so I was looking up, like in the video I was looking up, they talked about how to store it.
I kind of, honestly, this may be a bad habit, but I love watching my garlic grow things because it makes me feel...
Me too.
Because like it's sitting on the windowsill in that sun, growing some little tiny baby arms. Look at him. Oh.
Or like potatoes. I kind of love it when they start to sprout.
Like a little hairy, you know, like
yeah.
Oh.
They crack me up.
Oh, and then the sage too.
Sage. Yes, we need 10 sage leaves. Oh, that's like one of the most important ingredients.
Sage leaves. Okay.
Oh, they're in the fridge, sorry. So sage is something that people don't normally cook with, and I didn't want you guys to go out and buy sage for this recipe and then have no idea what to do with it and be like, I guess I have to make this recipe a million times. Oh, and here's fresh sage. If you're familiar with the plant lamb ears, it kind of feels like that. It's very soft and kind of fuzzy. But we have a drink recipe for you, non-alcoholic. Because Karis is underage. Wait, no, you're not anymore.
No, I'm still 19.
Oh, you're still 19?
Still 19. Okay. Add alcohol if you want, you know.
Yeah, how many was that? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But that way you'd have another use for all your sage, especially fresh sage. I don't usually cook with that as much as I do like a dried sage that you find in like a container like this. Fresh herbs and dried herbs though have a different flavor, like not to say flavor, but one is definitely a lot more intense than the other, and so it can make a big difference. Like in cilantro especially, that's somewhere I notice it. Fresh cilantro has a much more intense flavor than dried cilantro. And if you're uncomfortable with spices and herbs and kind of don't know the flavors of each, I really recommend just eating things raw and trying them. One thing I've done in the past is take pita bread and you just put a little bit of oil on it and roast it and put your spices on there and you try each piece because pita bread is pretty neutral in flavor. And then you can get an idea of what each spice tastes like. It's also a fun game to play with your friends, like not tell them what every spice is and have them guess, like, can they think of a dish that it's in? Like, oh, this reminds me of, like if you're doing like dill, it reminds me of a dip I've had, and have them try to figure out what food it is. So you can use, she recommends not to use a food processor because food processors don't get things as well incorporated as blenders, but so we're going to use a Ninja for this. And we're just going to blend it down until it's nice and creamy. And we're going to mute so that you don't have to hear the ridiculous blender sounds. We forgot to add a half cup of water. I was wondering why it was looking so thick. Get some water. Ooh, it smells great.
It does. Ooh. And throw that half cup in.
Ooh. Perfection. And you want this to be nice and creamy. Actually, I'll show you something. So if it's still kind of stringy, like you can see a string hanging off right here, it means your artichoke hasn't been blended enough. So you just want to keep blending it because you want this to be nice and creamy, not in any way stringy. So we're just going to stick him back on and blend again. Do you want to mute real fast?
Oh, absolutely.
All right. So now I'm going to taste to see if it has enough salt and pepper. You want to taste too?
Yes. Could use a little more of both.
That's a very fresh flavor.
That is. That's super good.
You can really taste the sage coming through and the garlic.
Kind of in love with that.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
I thought this would be a much thicker, richer flavor, but it's actually very light and very fresh. It's nice. So we're gonna give it just a quick pulse to get the spices I just added nice and incorporated. All right. Let's try that again, see if it's better. I like that.
It's amazing.
Anything?
Nope. That's
Okay. Let's get him hot. We're gonna switch the boiling water over to this side. Put him on here. So the next thing we're gonna do is roast our mushrooms. And we're adding mushrooms to this because they're absolutely delicious. And I think that richer umami flavor would go really well, especially now that I know that this isn't as rich as I thought it would be. I think it'll help a lot. And these are already chopped. Every time I go to the store, the chopped ones are cheaper, so that's what we're using. And we're just gonna add a little bit of oil to our pan.
Oh, I'm gonna
switch it over.
See if we can unmute now.
And do you want to saute these up?
Sure. Do you want me to mute this one or do you want to?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're just gonna add in like a cup's worth.
Beautiful.
And start sauteing them up.
You want to get some spices in here too?
Yeah. What kind of spices do you want?
So I know there's a lot of garlic in this dish, but I'm just kind of feeling like, do you want more garlic?
I love that. Do you want powdered garlic or do you want a clove for roast?
Let's get a clove for us real quick.
All right.
So while I'm kind of just shoving these around, sauteing them, you know, I don't know if you can hear that, but a real nice sizzle. I have Amarais. She's gonna really quickly chop up or mince up a garlic clove for me just to cook with this. In the meantime, I'm gonna throw in a little bit of salt and a little bit of black pepper. Keep tossing it around that oil. And as you cook the mushrooms too, you'll notice that when you throw them in first with your oil, they kind of soak it up immediately. But as you start cooking them out, they start releasing all of the liquids inside of them. So don't worry if your pan starts to look a little dry. I wouldn't add any more oil.
And I'm chopping up the garlic the same way basically that Karis did last week. I'm just giving it like a dice and I'm going over it with my knife holding down the tip. So it's nice and chopped.
Mushrooms are absolutely my favorite thing to add to any dish. Feels like Amarais said, like umami. Like I make mushroom gravy with mushrooms too, and it's just like
it's
they really,
phenomenal.
Yeah. That I mean, it's about as meaty as you're gonna get with plants, you know. I guess a fungi because a fungi is not a plant, but
yeah,
semantics.
Yeah. And that's one thing that I really like to look at when I am cooking vegan or vegetarian is looking at like the umami content because you know it's really great to have other flavors, but sometimes that is the one flavor that I find that I'm missing when I eat it. Another fun thing, if you aren't vegan or vegetarian, is to look at vegan and vegetarian recipes, because I find they often have like unique flavor combinations that other like just regular omnivore recipes wouldn't have. And they also give some really great suggestions for like how to supplement things, like how to supplement egg or supplement milk in recipes if you want to like take some things out and make it more healthy.
So our mushrooms are starting to change color a little bit. They're getting a nice little brownness to them. They're getting a little darker. Our garlic is still kind of just a little bit raw, so we're gonna let that keep roasting a little bit. What do we have up next, Amarais?
So while that roasts and our water is still not quite boiling yet, I can show you guys our drink recipe. I'm very excited for this recipe. I actually need the same blender, so I'm going to empty this into a bowl.
So this is our mic real quick. Do you want me to mute this one and then unmute that one?
Yeah, sure.
So real quick before I lose you guys, I'm gonna add a little more oil just to rehydrate them just a little bit. Because as you push it around, you'll feel like if they are starting to stick to the bottom of the pan, just a little more oil won't hurt you. All right.
Clean, but it's not. So I'm just real quick washing out the one I have to get the oil out. Because you wouldn't want garlicky oil from your sauce in a nice drink. That just sounds disgusting. But while I rinse it, the things in the drink recipe, we didn't post it because it's kind of like a little extra that we're including. And with a lot of our recipes, we'll probably have some little extra things. Both for time, like while we're sitting here waiting for the water to boil and sauteing mushrooms, you don't just want to sit here and watch that. But since this is live, we can't edit that part out. So we have some things like that to include throughout all of our recipes. So the first thing, when we pull it up, because I don't remember all the ingredients, but we're going to need sage and cucumber, I know for sure. Oh, and lemon juice and sparkling water. So I'm just grabbing those out of the fridge. So to the blender head, we're gonna add a half cup of lemon juice. Oh, I didn't even grab the lemon juice. Oh wait, I bought a fresh lemon because we also need lemon peel. Part of cooking is also running around like a chicken with your head cut off just a little bit. Looking for everything you need because you're never completely prepared.
Those cooking shows that they have on Food Network, totally unrealistic. Because you will never take the time to like portion out all of your like ingredients into tiny little glass bowls, or the exact amount of like 2 tablespoons into a tiny little glass bowl. It's literally mostly just running around and like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do?
And also, when you start to get comfortable cooking, like being able to just eyeball things is really helpful. So I'm gonna squeeze this lemon over my hand so I can catch all the seeds. And I'm thinking a half cup of lemon juice is probably gonna be this whole lemon.
And our water is boiling now.
Perfect. Do you want to add the pasta? It's right over there.
Where's it located?
Right over there, yeah. Sorry.
You're fine.
So we're just squeezing some lemon. And this is going to be a really nice, like, refreshing, like, summer drink. Right now in Topeka, Kansas, it doesn't really feel like summer, but
do you break your
it
pasta
will be soon.
Or you want to just leave it on?
It depends. That's another thing. Some people break their pasta and some people don't. It's just a preference. Some people don't like their pasta super long. I don't have a preference. I normally don't, just for that sake. Yeah.
My parents are old and they don't like the hassle of cutting their pasta or dealing with long noodles, so they always break it.
Yes.
So you can see me slightly. No, you can't. I have just put in the spaghetti into the water, kind of shoving it in. I mean, like, hopefully you know how to boil pasta, but threw the spaghetti in the boiling water. I'm going to let that sit for about, what is it? It's like 8 minutes.
Yeah. And all of those tricks where people like throw pasta against the wall or weird stuff like that, like those don't work. The best way to test your pasta is just to fish one out and like bite into it. And you can cook it to al dente, which is usually the recommended like amount you cook. And al dente means it still has some bite in the center. To the tooth, yes, like you haven't cooked it completely. And people do this because once you take the pasta out, the residual heat from all of its other pasta friends with it will help it to continue to cook. And so if you cook it all the way down, it'll get mushy. So we're just adding 2 cups of sparkling water. This one's lemon lime flavored because I didn't see one that was plain. And it says 2 tablespoons of finely chopped sage. So we're gonna take our sage, and I think 2 tablespoons is probably gonna be about as much as we put in our sauce. Actually, it's probably gonna be close to 10 leaves. So I'm just plucking up all the little leaves from this stem. Oh, that's another thing. You don't usually use the stems of any herb that you're using. The stems are usually hard and don't have the same flavor as the leaves. The leaves are normally what you're going for. I'm gonna move this out of the way. An easy way to cut your herbs is to take them and kind of roll them up and bunch them and then chop them that way. So I'm just gonna take all of the herbs that all the leaves that I just cut and kind of roll them and then slice them that way. And this makes it easy because you're kind of chopping them all at once, but also they're kind of all one unit, as opposed to like all these little random leaves that you're just hoping that you cut. And so we're just giving that a nice chop.
Do you have a ladle I could snag?
I do, right here.
Oh,
you can fish around in there for anything you'd like. These finely chopped. Oh, you're good. This is probably like a tablespoon's worth. So we're gonna cut some more. Once again, I'm eyeballing because I really don't measure most things. I'm not as good with liquid. I do tend to measure for liquid, and I always measure for rice. Rice is just a 2-to-1 ratio though, so it's really easy to measure with, because whatever container worth of rice you got, you just double it with water. There is a way to measure rice and water where like you put the rice in and you stick your finger in and the water has to go like so far up your finger, but I don't really understand that method and I don't see a lot of people use it. I think that's just if you make like rice every day and you're super confident. I do have friends like that, but I do not eat that much rice. So we have our sage, we have our lemon. I am missing something. Oh, it's cucumber. Cucumber and lemon rind. So I'm just grabbing my cucumber. Yeah.
Okay.
We were just discussing off to the side, pasta water. So pasta water is kind of magical because when you're cooking the pasta, all of the like starches and flour from the pasta leach out into the water. And so if you want a really amazing sauce, the best way to do that, especially if you want it to thicken up or loosen up, is to add, oh, it's been 20 minutes. I'm going to check our roasted veggies. Do you want to stab it with a fork and see if it's good?
Yes. No.
So close. Here's the forks.
So our expert technique is you're gonna take a fork. Obviously, you're gonna take a hot pad to take that pan out of there. You don't want to burn yourself. And then you're gonna stab at our veggies. So the purple potato is still kind of hard. I think it could probably go in for a little bit longer.
Okay, I figured. Do you want to give it a quick toss with your
Yes,
spatula?
I will. So whenever you stab into it, what you want to feel is like it has to be soft. It has to give kind of like when we made the pecan tacos last week. How we stabbed into the pecans, they were soft to the fork. Whoop.
Yeah, it also helps to turn halfway through to get the oil all nice and redistributed, because like right now, like this pan is not perfectly flat and it's pooling a little bit, and it helps get everything redistributed so it doesn't stick too badly.
Mm-hmm.
That's also another reason why I really enjoy using tin foil. Should we add more mushrooms? We can use the whole thing.
Oh, absolutely. I'm down for that.
So we used a cup worth of mushrooms to begin with, but I kind of forgot how much mushrooms cook down. I always forget that for some reason. Mushrooms cook down a lot, so we're gonna basically double what we did. I'm gonna add the whole carton of mushrooms.
And so, like, as I was talking about earlier, like mushrooms, they cook down and they release all their juices. So we switch back. Whoop. Switch back over here.
And while she talks, I'm just going to peel my cucumbers so we don't have gross cucumber skin on our drink.
Here we go. You can join me here at the stove. It's a work in progress. We have our mushrooms still cooking away. You see how dark they've gotten. They've actually gotten a lot smaller in the pan since we've been gone. So we got these bad boys cooking. We're just gonna go, boom, throw it on top. Add a little tiny bit more oil for those new boys. And you're gonna wanna hit it again with the seasoning. So that is salt, got some pepper, and I'll take a little bit of garlic powder since we already used garlic clove earlier, just to give it a little more garlicky flavor. Never get enough garlic. I feel like out of all of the essentials you could have in the spice cabinet, garlic is the top one. Like garlic powder, because like sometimes you can't always get access to cloves. Garlic powder is super easy way to add garlic into anything.
And it's honestly just like one of the best spices.
Mm-hmm. So toss those boys in, give them a good cook. Currently have the stove on low just because I was letting them sit there. I'm going to turn up the heat just a little bit so it's just under medium. So the new boys have all soaked in that extra oil that I just put in. I'm going to toss them around. You know, the pan is decently dry. Everything's kind of shiny though. To my left, you'll hear the pasta still boiling away. Do you want to talk about your drink again?
Yeah, so I just took the cucumber.
Over there.
So I just took the cucumber and cut it into big chunks because cucumber is a very watery vegetable, so it's going to be really easy to blend up. And put it in my blender. And we're just going to give it a blend so it's nice and not chunky. So I'm going to mute while we give that a blend. So now, like all things, I'm going to give that a quick taste and make sure that I like the flavor, because you can always add more. And I don't think I added enough lemon juice, so we'll see if it's nice and lemony. Oh, that's very good. I'm actually going to add a little bit more lemon. I do think it's good that. I would highly recommend this drink. This is better.
Taste testing is the most important part of cooking. Always taste the in-between, because you're always probably going to want to add something new or add something extra.
Where is my lemon juice?
Is there anything left in this husk?
In the what?
In this husk of a lemon?
You can
This
try.
husk of a
I
lemon?
think so. I do have lime juice.
I got 2 drops.
Different flavors, but it's still very good. I think we're out of lemon. Okay. Well, I'm I'm adding a little bit of lime juice to this. Lime has a slightly different flavor. I don't really know how to explain the difference of the flavor. In my mind, how would you just, like, lemon is almost sweeter to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Lime is a little more bitter, I feel like.
Yeah, I actually like lime better for things like drinks, because typically drinks are, and I'm just going to shake this since it's just a liquid, because a lot of drinks are already sweetened in some way. Oh, this was a bad idea to shake because we added sparkling water. You might let him vibe for a sec. Oh, I can't get it off now.
No. Stay tuned.
Okay, so don't shake it because the carbonation made it really hard to open. But yeah, and then you just pour it over ice and that's your drink.
Check the pasta over here.
Oh yeah, you're doing great.
I got you.
Karis, would you like some drink?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so in the background, turn this bad boy up real quick. In the background here, I am checking our pasta. I'm going to see if I can get a nice little noodle to test out. See if it's al dente or not. So this stuff can be very hot. You don't want to like shove it in your fingers, shove it in your mouth immediately. Give it some time to cool down. The best way to check is to eat it. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah?
Got a little bit of crunch to it, but it's still pretty soft.
Perfect.
So, you're going to want to look for a little bit of crunch. Still pretty soft. I think that this bad boy is done. Do you want to add any of the pasta water to the sauce at all, or do you think we're fine with that consistency?
You know, we might add a little bit. Let's save a little bit of pasta water here. We'll just take this cup and we'll fill it up with some water and let that vibe off on the side. You want to drain?
You got a colander for me?
Yes, I have it ready right here. Another thing about the drink, you can also add ice to your blender, and it'll make it more like an icy or a slush. I like to do that if I'm making like virgin pina coladas. I like to make those kind of slushy. But the recipe didn't call for this one to be slushy, so I left him as is.
Show me your candles with him.
Yes. Actually, throw him in the pan with the mushrooms, and we'll add the sauce. Would you like a straw here?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm going to give you a bendy straw so we can tell our drinks apart.
So I'm going to show what I just did over here.
Yes. So we'll go ahead and add our...
Oops. All right. Well. So, as you can see, the pan has changed a lot since the last time you checked in over here.
Let's scrape it.
Yes. So, we just tossed the pasta we just drained. I did not rinse it. Don't rinse your pasta. It rinses off all the goodness, the starch. Scraping that sauce in. I think instead of the spatula, I'm going to use a spoon. And I'm just going to mix everything together. Toss that pasta water in.
And pasta water in general is just a really nice finisher for your sauce. Especially because once a sauce starts to cool, it will, what's the word I'm looking for? It'll thicken. And a little bit more pasta water.
Yeah. So if I can describe this smell to you, good, pure, an absolute treasure. The sage is really popping out. So is the garlic. So the creaminess of this sauce, even though it is vegan, does that come from the artichokes?
I would say yes. Also the oil, when you blend oil, it can create a creaminess too. Like that's what mayonnaise is basically. It's an egg with a bunch of oil.
Oh.
Yeah. It's actually really cool to watch mayonnaise videos because like a jar of oil with like an egg in it, and it looks so gross, and all of a sudden it's mayonnaise. It almost makes me not want to eat mayonnaise, but it's one of my favorite condiments, and I'll never stop.
Low-key, I'm actually making such a mess over here.
No, it's all good.
So you can only see one burner of Amarais' stove, but if you look around everywhere else around the burners, it looks like a war zone. I have splattered artichoke sauce everywhere. A little messy, but you know what? I think messy is best.
If you don't make a mess while you're cooking, are you even cooking?
Nope, you're not doing it right. So I'm just making sure everything is evenly distributed. You know, the mushrooms aren't sitting on the bottom of the pasta or anything. The burner is still warm, so we're keeping the pasta warm. But
you're muted on that one. It's coming from this one.
Oh, well, I thought I hit on.
Well, hi.
Never mind. I've been talking like you've been able to see me this whole time. So, on this camera. It's picking up for both of them.
So he's muted.
So on this one, sorry that you couldn't see what was going on. We threw the pasta on top, and then into the pan of the mushrooms, and
sorry, it's moving a little bit.
and then we threw in our sauce, and I've just been tossing it like this, taking a nice spoon and flipping it around.
And once we added everything, we turned it on the lowest possible heat, but I went ahead and turned it off because at this point nothing needs to be cooking, we're just mixing. And I think our vegetables should be just about ready. I set a timer for another 20 minutes, but I don't think, is this the fork you used?
Yes.
But I don't think it actually needs that long. So I'm just gonna open it up, give it a quick stabby stab. Oh yeah, they're all feeling perfect. So what you're looking for, Karis talked about this earlier, but it's really soft. The fork should stab through pretty easily. Give those a quick mix. And we are all done. And there's your meal. Here, I'll show it on this camera too. Oh, because that was, yeah. All nice and cooked. And you can see how they're lightly browned, almost fried. Like, that's what the oil does. Oh, yeah, give it a nice mix.
Give poke.
Here's just if you want to hold it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're all completed. Thank you guys so much for joining us again. We're going to go eat our food and enjoy our drinks.
So excited.
We'll see. Oh, we almost forgot about our vibe. So this week, our vibe I have written down is on my laptop. And the vibe I picked out to go with this meal is Your Soul by Forrest. And I picked this because it was a pretty chill vibe. And I thought this dish was going to be a lot creamier. But, you know, I stick with it. It's a chill vibe. And I feel like chill and creamy are very synonymous. Thank you for joining us.
We'll see you guys next week.
Okay, Susan, we're all done.